Morning viewers, welcome back again to day 2. This time we're going to be discussing issues based on gender-based violence and domestic violence. In front of me, or with me rather, is a wonderful panel. I'd like for them to introduce themselves and I hope you'll be blessed. So we'll start with you, madam.
I am Jean Washuka Wakiru, and I am the JPRC Pcea Kariobangi South Secretary.
Well, my name is Kaka Kamau, a member of the Kariobangi South Church, Pcea, a member of the JPRC, in district number 4. Thank you.
And I am Maxwell Mulwa. I'll be your host once again, and I'm also a member of JPRC and also a participant in Pcea Kariobangi South Church, and I'm welcomed and thankful to be with you again. So on today's topic, guys, it's a really long topic. It's a very wide one also. And it's something that's not only happening in Kenya, but in the whole globe as well. You see, it's another pandemic that we're facing, even if we're refusing about it. Gender-based violence. What can you say about this? And how do we go about it? I think we'll start off with you, Kaka.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Gender-based violence actually is what it is about, violence. And mostly when you're talking about gender-based violence, we're talking about the violence that is visited mostly on our women in the society, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, and our relatives and friends. So that we have a situation whereby women have faced, mostly I'm talking about women because they are the victims, various forms of violence. And perhaps even as we start to state it out is that it is a global problem. It is not a Kenyan problem alone. It is a problem that is worldwide, and we even have international bodies like the HWO that have set out guidelines on how to proceed and to go about when one is faced with this situation. In Kenya too, we have situations that the government has put in place to try and mitigate on this issue of gender-based violence.
Oh, you said something about the WHO.
Yes.
Giving guidelines. Is it something that's accessible maybe to people out there to maybe know?
If you go to the website of the WHO, you will see what they have said. But basically what they have done is to give guidelines when people are facing such a situation. Like, for example, you find they will be saying that if you're in that kind of a situation, what are you supposed to do? So they try and help people in formulating policies. Like, for example, they will say that you should always have a friend that you know that you can confide in, a neighbor that you can confide in, a church minister, elder, or somebody in a position of authority that you can talk to when you are faced with that situation. And if the problem escalates, they have even now gone further and now given you how to prepare for that. Like, for example, they tell you that put some money aside in case this situation escalates. Go ahead and put your identification documents in place. Identify a shelter that you can run to should this situation escalate, and just be ready. And even have a message, a coded message that you could send to people when you are in that kind of a situation, because you might be in a situation whereby you're not even able to make a call, but you could make a call and give a coded message to whoever who trusts you, so that they actually now start beginning that truly here we have a problem, and they'll be in a position of assisting you. Those are some of the guidelines that the HWO has given.
Yeah, actually, before even you get to tackling maybe the main thing at hand, what are really the different types of gender-based violence maybe that are out there? Maybe, you know, some maybe require certain level of manner to tackle it, or is there any difference, or do they have any unique or specific way to deal with them? So what are the different types?
Broadly speaking, we can actually categorize them into 4 groups. And the first one is the obvious one that we call overt physical abuse. Now, overt just simply means something that is done openly. So that we say overt physical abuse, and this now includes battering, that is now like what we now know as wife beating, sexual assault at home or in the place of work. That is the first group of now categorization of domestic or gender-based violence. Then we have the psychological abuse. This includes deprivation of something like liberty, sorry, I had to give you some notes here, forced marriages, sexual harassment at home or in the place of work. Now that is the second one. The third one is deprivation of resources needed for physical and psychological well-being. This includes health, education. And perhaps to give you an example like education, I know of a situation in the past that I was given a story by my parents, my mom, and she really loved education and all these things. So up at that point, their system was up to class 8, like we have today, but then that is how it was in those days. So after she had performed well in her class 8, she was now supposed to go to the next level. And her father, who was actually a church elder, a Pcea elder, without actually thinking that this is part of what we now call gender-based violence, told her that there is no way you're going now to study so much to an extent that now you are more educated than I am. Now you are ready to go forth and look for work. So these are some of the subtle things that we see, but we do not exactly recognize. And that is why it is important to notice that when we talk about gender-based violence, people will always think of monsters, big men, harassing women. But it could also happen that it is something that is happening even in our churches, our elders, our church ministers, people in authority that we look up to. They could inadvertently be part and parcel of the problem that you're talking about, gender-based violence. So we need to create an awareness that even some of the statements people make, that the statements people make, this actually forms part of what we're calling gender-based violence. So these are things that we should constantly, without failure, constantly keep telling people that these things happen. It is wrong to categorize women in this group, and we always have to be guarded when we're making even statements, because we could inadvertently be perpetrating this violence we're talking about. The last one is treatment of women as commodities. This trafficking. Trafficking women, we've known that women have been trafficked for sexual exploitation. We also know some of the adverts that exploit women, so that when they're advertising their properties, women are seen as symbols, not as human beings. So we need to be very, very cognizant of that fact that some of these things that we stereotype women about are part of what is gender-based violence against women. Yeah.
So if I get it right from your statement, I think more of the first step you've taken to how we tackle this stuff is creating awareness.
Precisely.
Creating awareness.
Precisely.
Just a broad question. How much do you think we've done in terms of creating awareness as a church, especially?
I will talk as a church because this is something very, very important. When Presbyterian Church first settled somewhere around the central region of this country, they found a people that believed in female genital mutilation. Our people, the Kikuyu people, you were never a woman until you actually were circumcised. Let me use that word for this purpose. So today, the Kikuyu people are a different story. I will tell you why that is so. That is so because when the church first settled here, they started an aggressive form of educating people, creating an awareness about the dangers of female genital mutilation. It was so well ingrained in people that we did not need a law to be passed for the Kikuyus to start abandoning female genital mutilation. Right now we have a law because, again, the gains that were made around here were not necessarily replicated in other areas like the Pokots, the Kisis, the Kurias, and all those people. So that we are having that as a problem. But we have now legislated, actually it's called female genital mutilation. There's a full act now that deals with that. But that came in 2015. The church started around 19 or something or thereabout. There was an aggressive form of awareness that was created so that people on their own accord, they realize the dangers. And this is actually a better way of addressing this than bringing in pieces of legislation. Because we could make all the laws in the world, but we have to change the behavior and the cultural effect on people, on how they view some of these issues. Yes.
And the church is a very first and utmost place to actually begin such change, actually, because it all starts with education, you said.
Precisely.
And studying the Word of God and following the ways of Christianity, I believe it's another way for people to understand the natural law
Yes.
of human beings.
Very well.
So having tackled it in terms of creating awareness, what more can it be done to those people who are ignorant, if I may say, or just prefer to do it their own way, regardless that they've already been told what is supposed to be done? What more can we do to tackle such?
I think the answer to that is purely persistence. We just have to persist on telling people. We have to keep on telling them. We should never tire about telling them about the dangers and the ills of this violence that is normally perpetrated towards our women. And also living as examples, because again, we are now going to be preaching water and drinking wine. So also being examples will truly help in making sure that we succeed in this endeavor of educating people and creating awareness.
Now, most of what you've said is basically on women.
Yes.
How do we handle, even if a few cases of men who are feeling like they are in that position, and yet they are men? Because they're there.
They're there.
But
Indeed.
how do they have a chance?
They actually do have a chance, and it is good that you brought up that question, because when I was trying to look about this topic about gender-based violence, notice we are not saying violence against women, you're talking gender. So when you talk about that, it includes both females and males. A study that was done some times back showed that 18% of men below the age of 18 have actually experienced sexual-based violence. So it is something that is there's no doubt about it. And mostly it goes up to the age of 18. Thereafter, of course, the numbers reduce because of course, our cultural setup and everything else. But it also happens against men, particularly now for boys and below the age of 18. And it could start even from the house, in terms of even the house girls that we employ could actually be abusing our boys. We could have situations whereby the schools that, boarding schools that our boys, we take them to, the bigger boys start sexually molesting them. It could be in colleges, in institutions of learning. These things actually happen. So it is not specifically for females alone. It works, it cuts across both, although it is women who mostly have the biggest share of this violence. The same thing will apply about the boys in terms of reporting. We have of course, the laws that have been set up that take care of both sexes when there is sexual violence, like, for example, the Sexual Offences Act. It also protects boys who are children or girls who are below the age of 18. And the laws are very, very clear there. This is what is normally called the Njoki's legislation, because she spearheaded, this is the Supreme Judge Justice Njoki, she spearheaded the legislation of the Sexual Offences Act of 2006. The same reporting mechanism, the same creating awareness also ought to be made to our boys, to our men, because again, we also have instances of even men in marriages who have been battered. So the same thing happens, but The violence that will be visited amongst men might be slightly different, because mostly then for men it will be physical. For women, it is not only physical, it could even be now sexual offenses and all those things. That is why perhaps we tend to focus more on women, but it is ideally, that is why it is very, very clear that they do not talk about against women. Even an act, there is an act that was created, that was put in, that is the Violence Against Domestic Violence Act. And one of the things in its preamble introduction is to say, take care of the gender. It does not talk about women, it talks about anybody who goes through this kind of a scenario. Yes.
Recently, I don't know why, but I think, I don't know what's happening to us as human beings. Before the pandemic,
Yes.
we never thought this story was even happening, you know? But now during this time, I don't know if things have gotten worse, or is it for us who are now seeing things in limelight? What do you think? Do you think the pandemic has led people to, I mean, during this pandemic, do you think this staying, I don't know if it's staying home together, I don't know if people didn't have time to stay home together, what do you think is maybe causing because I'm sure it's not coronavirus that's making people all go haywire on the other person. I don't think so.
Indeed.
That's not a symptom. Okay, so yeah.
Perhaps what this pandemic has done is that naturally human beings, being social animals, we like going out, coming in, and we've been very, very busy, and we've not been idle. So this scenario that is completely unprecedented came to us, and we were told to stay at home. Remember, they say that, I don't know, what is the workshop of the devil? An idle mind. So that we find people who are just staying in the house. They look at each other. They have nothing to do. We have our young people with so much energy. They are unable to have a release of all those energies. So if you're not well adjusted to society, there is always a possibility that you have to vent out some of these frustrations that you have. And unfortunately, it is now ending up now happening to all women. There are women who are never used to their husbands being at home. They were never at home. All of a sudden, they are just staying at home. Chances are that conflicts are bound to be more in that situation, because people are now confined to one area. So it has nothing to do with COVID. It's the new normal, as the minister is calling it, would actually be contributing to it. And this is now where perhaps the church can come in, people in authority can come in and create an awareness on how do we handle this, because it's a new thing that we've had. There are men who had never stayed in their houses for so long. All of a sudden, the entire day you're just there, your wife, your children, all the workers around there, and they don't know how to behave. And people easily become irritated when they feel that they are not in control of the situation. Yes.
Thank you so much. And I think we can take a break up to there now. And when we come back, we'll have a conclusion on how we go about this stuff. And maybe some of the resolutions, maybe the church, or as we, even the JPRC, can come up with during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome back again. So this time we're just going to have a short conclusion. So personally, Brother Kaka, yes, what will you do? What will you do to help a brother out there, you know, without explaining maybe much of the law and everything to him or to him? What will you do? What will you do to help your brother or your friend that's maybe going through such a stuff?
I think the first thing that I'll do is to, first of all, get to understand the extent on the violence that has been visited on this person who has come to see me, because that will inform me on the measures that we take. There is the kind of a violence that you now advise somebody that I think this one, talk to, like in our church, to your elder, district elder, who can actually now assist you. You might even find that you might go a little bit further depending on the extent of the violence to tell this person, I think now you should also now talk to a church minister, because of course being the guiding father in these whole things is also a very important thing. But thirdly, depending again with the extent, we would now start looking at the possibilities of now taking it legally. So that now I now know as a lawyer, I need now to take up these measures. This is the first place that we need to visit. This is what we need to do. The reporting mechanisms are A, B, C, D. So that is what would inform me on now assisting a person who would now come to me faced with this gender-based violence situation.
Okay, awesome. Washka, oh, you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
As a church,
Yes.
how far in these matters? What can we do?
As a church, I think is first of all to understand and appreciate that the basic function of the church is the spiritual part of it. So that the church now will look at it and give you spiritual guidance on how to handle this. Because of course, that's a very, very important means of handling this one, and even a route towards now healing. Because if you're not spiritually sound, even after having faced all these things, you will not heal completely. So the church comes in and plays the role of spiritual guidance. And still, even the church is not limited to just that. It can even offer, and sometimes some churches have shelters where they have for people faced with these kind of situations. We have churches that will now even advise you that in our church, we have this group. Like we have the JPRC. We have lawyers in JPRC. We could refer you to some of these lawyers to also assist you. So these are all the things that as a church, the church should play a role. And perhaps even like this session we are having is part of what the church is doing to help this kind of a situation. Yes.
Okay. So, Washka, yes.
Yes, sir.
How will you go about to help out a sister?
First, I think, as Kaka had mentioned earlier, having someone you can talk to is very important. And you get your own, you get a second opinion and a way or a direction on how to handle it. Or what do you think, Kaka?
That's precisely so.
Then from there, you can also be linked to someone who can help you. And in this context, the church, through JPRC, through the church secretary.
Counselors.
Yes, counselors, the evangelist, the parish minister. All these people are here to help you. And if there's need for legal intervention, we thank God for entities like him. Who can really be of assistance to us. Yes.
So yes, that's our session for today. Matters on how to mitigate gender-based violence and domestic violence. And I hope all you viewers out there have received this wonderful information. And if you need any way to reach out to us, the JPRC group, we are in Pcea Kariobangi South, and we are ready to help out anyone who's in need. Also, you can come and talk to the parish minister for any member, also for the youths who are maybe undergoing maybe facing the victims or some in such scenarios. You can come talk to the youth coordinator or talk to the youth deacons in your district, and everything will be okay. So I thank you so much for the wonderful time. Thank you, wonderful panel. This is a wonderful time we've been with you. Thank you for the information. God bless you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.